Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Cimmerian September. This is a month-long celebration of the original Robert E. Howard writings of Conan the Barbarian. It's created by Michael K. Vaughan, of course, who's our king of pulp, and it's designed to take you back, as the Renaissance scholars would have said, ad fontes. It's to take you back to the beginning, back to the original sources. It's designed to get you to read Robert E. Howard on Conan, instead of the million pastiches that have been done. Read and appreciate Robert E. Howard's Conan. Not a bit here and there, and not a fraction, but the whole thing. All the stories, the novella, and the fragments, which are contained in a big, fat, black volume. I don't know if you can see it. It might not be visible behind me. There's a big Gollancz 1 volume that you can get. There's a long and complicated story of that 1 volume on this channel that is, I think, a pure demonstration of all the best. That is BookTube. Once upon a time, I was watching, there was a booktuber named Jason Harrigan, who was doing a library tour of his immense library, and he pulled down the Gollancz 1 volume Conan, and I sounded off in the comments section, squeeing and eeing, because I wanted it so bad. I remembered it from my days in the bookstore, but I didn't get it when it was on sale in the bookstore. And in the pure BookTube fashion, Jason backed it up and sent it to me. And that was wonderful. I squeed when I opened it. But then, months later, in the pure BookTube fashion, a subscriber to my channel sent me photographs. I was just at my library sale. I think it was a library sale. And here it is. Here's that Gollancz paperback. Do you want me to get you it and send it to you? And theirs was a paperback, not a hardcover. And I knew that I was going to bash the hell out of a hardcover. So I said, sure. And once it got here, I had the 2 of them, so I sent the hardcover off to Mark Richardson, which is a read. So it's what we do here on BookTube, is that we send each other books because we know they'll be good homes. You can get that volume, or Del Rey also does a 3-volume. They do a magnificent run of just Robert E. Howard in general. But their run of 3 volumes on Conan is amazingly good. All of them as kind of antidotes to those things right there, to L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, to the multi-volume Conan volumes that they did decades ago, that mucked with the chronology, and far worse, mucked with the prose, so that when you were reading those things, you weren't 100% sure where Robert E. Howard stopped and they started. So that's the point of Cimmerian September, is to read Conan in September, the original Conan in September. But I have been going afield right from the beginning. I had a plan as soon as Michael K. Vaughan announced this. A madcap idea came to mind to read all of Marvel Comics' Savage Sword of Conan, their black and white magazine of Conan adventures. Most of which were written by Roy Thomas, quite a few of which were drawn by John Buscema, but not always those two. A lot of times, matters of inferior quality were mixed in with that roster, especially as the thing got to the upper 190s issue number. Then 200, then 230, then 250. I read Savage Sword of Conan right from the beginning, but I stopped getting it after a while because the issues were just bad. It was, I remember distinctly telling myself, I'm not going to pay $1.50 for Ernie Chan artwork. I'm not going to do that. And it was all that. It seemed like it was all that. Nevertheless, so there are a lot of these issues. There are a lot of Savage Sword of Conan issues that I've only read once, and that was 50 years ago, or that I've not read at all. So I've been making a point of sort of going through these things, but the last couple of outings, as we've talked about here on this channel, have not been particularly good. They've been a trial, really. So I thought I would go to just this once, before we go elsewhere. I thought I would go back to a story that I know I like. And it's an interesting commentary on a story that we've already seen. I went all the way back to Savage Sword of Conan #1. Not to be confused with Savage Tales #1. Michael and I both did a video on Savage Tales #1. Savage Tales limped along in a weird, erratic, very unenthusiastic publishing schedule, and was a compendium of all sorts of fantastic adventure. It wasn't just Conan. It wasn't just Robert E. Howard. And then it got retooled into something called Savage Sword of Conan, which was given a new first issue. And that's what I read. That's what we're reading this time around. The cover shows a rarity, a bad Boris Vallejo cover. You don't get many of those. Boris Vallejo is usually really good. And I think I know the reason why this is bad. This would be a total guess on my part, totally apocryphal. I don't know anything about the genesis of this cover. But I'd be willing to bet that a large part of this cover, you can see by the details, that a large part of this cover was done ahead of time. A large part of this cover, the Conan part, was already done when Boris Vallejo was informed that Red Sonja is in this issue and had to add her. I could be wrong about that. It also isn't all that accurate to the story, but we're going to see. The cover does not make an empty promise. The cover starts off, once again, we are back in the City of Thieves. We are back in the mall where we started an earlier adventure in Savage Sword of Conan. Conan is stalking his way through the mall. Roy Thomas is once again telling us how horrible the place is. The mall, where a giant Kothian barter sullenly and with ragtag Nemedian deserter over the price of a flagon of contraband Argosian wine. While in harsh voices that have no love in them, men barter with painted women for other pleasures. The mall is a sinkhole of corruption and violence. And Conan stalks through it without a care in the world. He can handle any violence that comes his way. He is called out by some of those painted women. They want to know if maybe if he gave himself a bath, he wouldn't be half bad looking. Maybe he'd be interested in buying some of their pleasures. And he's happy to oblige. This is not Conan the Correct. He's happy to oblige. He thinks that's a great idea. He says, I owe myself a good week's drunk before I go enlist in some teetotaling general's army, and Mitra knows I always pay what I owe. So he has to go and get provisions for their bacchanal together. He walks off and hears a cry of distress. And he's not all that interested. He's not going to run towards it. It runs towards him. A man in a cloak, slams up against him. And he says, easy, man, I'm not attacking you. And just swats him aside. The man runs for his life, but he's being chased by armed men who accost Conan. This is a very, very bad idea to do, if you've got the impression by now. This is a very bad idea to do, to accost Conan in an alleyway. And Buscema gives us these great visuals. Just fantastic visuals. Conan draws his sword. There are 4 of them. He draws his sword and says, step forward and join your sainted mothers in dog heaven. One of them says, insult and blasphemy, all in the same breath. But it doesn't do them any good. Look at that backhand. He just hacks the guy's head practically off his neck. Backhand. Spears one another. This is what you can do in Savage Sword of Conan that you couldn't at the time do in the color comic Conan the Barbarian. You can have Conan's kills be quite visceral. And he's going in for these last 2 when he slips on something and seems to fall. And his opponent, Rico, is sure that he is going to gut the barbarian. He's completely vulnerable until he himself is gutted. His face changes, and he pitches over with a line that you movie buffs will appreciate. He says, is this the end of Rico? And who has done the brochetting of this thief, this brigand? Red Sonja. This is John Buscema's version of Red Sonja. This is not Barry Windsor Smith's version. Barry Windsor Smith's version of Red Sonja wore clothing, which I think we can all agree is a little bit on the rude side. This Red Sonja has been redesigned. Long red tresses, wonderfully placed mail armor, chainmail armor. She tells Conan that of course she's going to rescue him. Who else would do that? Conan wants to know. He tells her later on in this issue, have I mentioned that I like your armor? What little there is of it? Conan wants to know what he tripped on. And it turns out it's a withered, desiccated, severed finger. Which is kind of gross. And when they move to where the source of this whole disturbance was from, they find a body that is missing a finger. It's an Argosian sorcerer named Costrano, who's lying there in some sort of weird pentagram, but he's dead. Sonja remembers she was in town when he was beheaded, brought to the block, and beheaded. The executioner says, well, wizard, have you aught to say? And Costrano says, aye, plenty to say, and a curse to lay upon the harlot Berthilda, she who learned that my ring finger was my strength, and lopped it off me while I slept. The curse of the undead man be on her head. The curse of... But he gets muffled because the executioner just wants to get on with the job of hacking his head off. So Sonya tells Conan that that's who this finger belongs to, and they think nothing of it. Conan tosses the finger on the ground, and they head off. Let's go. If we can find a tavern, I'll pretend I owe you a drink instead of a clout on that saucy chin. And she says, I'll split a flagon of ale with you, Cimmerian, but if you value your hands, you'll keep them to yourself. And he says, same old Sonya. What they don't see is that the finger is moving back to the hand. Where you'd think if Sonya heard him say that about cutting off his finger, she wouldn't just leave it lying around within reach of his hand. But they go to the tavern, and they're just talking in a crowded tavern. Taverns are central to the comic book Conan the Barbarian. They're just talking when one of those painted ladies shows up. They wondered what became of Conan. Where did you go? All of a sudden, you're sitting here with someone else. She says, never mind, Barbarian. How could I be jealous? At least until I know if your drinking comrade is a woman or a veteran of the foreign misadventures. And Sonya says, I don't like your tone, Two Chins, so keep a civil tongue in your head. And she says, who says that I should? Look at the two of them. And of course, it's Sonya who says so. I said so, slut. She punches her across the room. She goes across the room. She knocks a table over. She's hit so hard. And they get back to talking. Conan says, by the way, did I tell you I like your armor, what little there is of it? And Sonya says, an Ophirian pikeman said the same thing to me the other day, just before he made a grab for me. I hope he can learn to wield a pike left-handed. And they're just chatting at their table when suddenly Conan notices something. Someone passing by his table has that finger. He has that what the? He left that finger in an alleyway. But there's about to be trouble because the wench that Red Sonja struck has called the police. And they burst into the tavern. Now look, I want you to look just at this. I won't belabor this, but look just at this middle panel. You see how see these two converging together? All of them looking in the same direction that she is also pointing in. In that one panel, Buscema has given it more movement, more of a feeling of fluidity than anything we saw in yesterday's whole issue, including panels that were designed to show action. And Conan and Red Sonja are naturally going to fight their way out. They're not going to be arrested. Conan doesn't even hesitate, like he would with someone else. He doesn't even hesitate. He knows that he has his equal as his right arm to hack their way out. She says to him, no use, there's too much cold steel for two swords to handle. And he suggests adding a little wood to the equation, so they upend the table equally. They are both wielding the table equally. Wonderfully done. Doesn't need to hit you over the head with anything. They go out into the city just in time to escape the reinforcements. Look what Buscema does with such a tiny panel. This panel is tiny. Those are the reinforcements running to the bar. See, not only running, but someone is urging them to run. It's a tiny little detail on the page. Thank heaven for pinchable artwork. Conan tells her that he saw Costrano's finger. That he saw the ring, and they want to get to the heart of it. So they go to this Berthilda's house to find out what is going on here. Maybe she has an answer to this. They find all of her servants dead, and they find her about to be sacrificed to nether gods by Costrano, who is alive and well. He's about to sacrifice her. And notice in the background, his functionaries are wenching a gigantic stone lid over a pit. They're opening a pit. And Conan and Red Sonja leap into action to defeat this supervillain. Now, here is a bit of a drawback between this and the print copy that I have, because you can't spread it's a 2-page panel and you can't spread it open. See, that's what you get, but you get the gutter, and it's much more noticeable on a screen than it would be in a comic book. You'd be a lot less noticeable. This is just one flaw. You get the two separate panels of it, but that's it. And they they leap into action. Conan spears the mystic, and he doesn't die. He's just kind of just leaning on his sword, and it's not killing him. Whereas Red Sonja is just making handiwork of all of his henchmen. But then something reaches out of the pit and grabs her. And she's off balance. It won't let go. She calls to Conan for help. He cuts the sorcerer's hand off again and throws his body into the pit, hoping that the gift of the body will distract whatever's in there from Red Sonja, and saying, but maybe a corpse would make a better meal for our netherfawn-spawned fiend than would a red-haired hellcat. And it does. It lets her go, and they lower this huge stone lid over the hold to stop whatever it is from coming out. Because that's a crucial thing in Conan stories, in the comic books especially, is that you can unleash any kind of supernatural demon, prehistoric monster that you want, but you've got to figure out some way at the end of the story that it's not a threat any longer. It can't just be roaming around. If it's unrealistic that Conan can beat it, then he's got to block it off from this world, one or the other. Like, for instance, we saw even in the classic Conan story, The Tower of the Elephant, there's nothing left when it's over. The tower crumbles to little pieces. The gem has already destroyed itself. There's nothing left. But they bring Brunhilde out of her home because they're trying to rescue her. And she says, put me down, you brainless oaf. I'll not be hauled about like an ox's carcass. All right, you slew that accursed Castrano. The danger's over, and I want to go back to my own house. And Sonja says, let her go, Conan. And he says, whatever you say. Crom, take me. I don't know why she'd want to go back there ever. And Sonja says, well, I do. The ring jewel of Castranos must be worth a small fortune. And she's obviously less choosy than we are about where wealth comes from. And Conan says, you're doubtless right. Where'd that ring figure go, anyway? I didn't see it. And Sonja says, I did. It fell into the pit, the same as the wizard's body. And Conan says, huh? But that means... And she says that Castrano might just come back to life a third time, in which case he'll still be wanting his revenge. And they hear a scream coming from the castle. But they're walking away. Conan actually says, well, we did our part, Crom knows. We saved the Brythinian once from her own treacherous folly. We can't go around making a career out of it. Absolutely wonderful. And they walk off. They walk off together. These two great figures. Conan says, you know, Sonja, I might even get to like you. And Sonja says, you're not so bad yourself, Cimmerian, but I still want that hand back where it belongs. Look at the beautiful use of shadow there, the beautiful use of blacks. Just wonderfully done. Just wonderful. This was just so wonderful. This issue, it's been reprinted many, many, many times. That was the thing about really good Conan stories, is that they often get endlessly reprinted. In fact, in Savage Sword of Conan #1, this issue, they reprint The Frost Giant's Daughter, among other things, because when you've got a winner, when fans really like it, they reprint it. And the reason that this reflects on an earlier Savage Sword of Conan that we did is that this also is taken from a fragmentary story by Robert E. Howard that was not a Conan story, a story called The Mistress of Death, that was, I guess, a kind of prototypical Red Sonja story. Red Sonja is 99% a creation of Roy Thomas, but he based her a little, he extracted her a little from a character of Robert E. Howard's that is not anywhere near as memorable. I think Del Rey also does a volume called Sword Women, in which all of her stories and fragments will appear in the order in which they were published. This one, The Mistress of Death, this character is in there, but she's not memorable. She's certainly not Roy Thomas's idea of an equal to Conan. In a wonderful way, Red Sonja is a wonderful creation. And I have to believe that that also matters legally, that she's Roy Thomas's creation, not Robert E. Howard's. I have to believe that that matters because I've noticed that when the Conan property, when the Robert E. Howard property shifts from one company to another, when it goes from Marvel to Dark Horse, then Dark Horse to Marvel, then Marvel to Titan books, Red Sonja doesn't usually go with it, does she? Am I understanding that wrong? It looks to me like she's a separate legal entity. Which might make team-ups a little difficult to do, but this is a fantastic team-up, and there are others. Roy Thomas, the writer of Savage Sword of Conan, for the huge bulk of its run, knew to use her sparingly in teaming up with Conan. You know, it's the same thing with any other comic book, really. You don't want Doctor Doom appearing in every issue. And so her appearances tend to be really, really memorable, really enjoyable. There's only one that I didn't like. But this was a cure for what ails me. This definitely was. This was a cure for what ails me. I went back to a Savage Sword of Conan issue that I know and love. So now I'm ready. Now I'm fueled to fire all the way to the end of this run and see what kind of stories I can find in the 200s. So, Crom and Mitra, protect me. Who knows how bad they'll be, but I'm going to give it a try, and I will report back. Thank you, BookTube.